Yo, you know what time it is. That's right. In off the bench time. I'm your host, Daniel Ball, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, my partner in crime, my brother from another mother, Jim Cross. And Jim, tonight we got a good one, man. We meet a lot of good people, but none better than the Torroella brothers from Omaha. We met these guys talking baseball, watching baseball, just shooting the BS. But the big thing is we found out their family, themselves, their community, their connection to the game of baseball. We got like mindsets. So we brought them on. We're going to talk about their career. But first, we're going to talk headlines because we got to get into that. And there's a lot to unpack from the week that was, the weekend that was, and the weekend that is surely to be. But before we get into headlines, we got to plug these sponsors. The In Off the Bench Podcast Network is brought to you by Chinook Ceadery. Whether you're on the field or in the boardroom signing deals, Chinook will help you get the job done. Memphis City Designs. Get your brands, gear, and logos on anything from shoes to underoos. Get your In Off the Bench gear while supplies last. Smith's Plumbing Services. You got any kind of clog, a sink clog, drain clog, toilet clog, or anything in between. If you're in the Mid-South area, call my boy Dustin with Smith's Plumbing Services so they can come out and take good care of you. Finally, Old Dominic Distillery. Experience 150 years of tradition in the heart of downtown Memphis. From bourbon to vodka, whiskey to gin, Old Dominic's got you covered. You can always stop in for a tour or to pick up your favorite bottle. And as always, tell them DB, tell them Jim from the In Off the Bench crew sent ya. Jim, I told you, it's been a wild week. The weekend was great. The week has been crazy, and I got the blues a little bit, and it's not the Memphis blues, it's the blues over Memphis. So that's kind of where I want to start this conversation because you're in the area where they've been talking a lot about the Memphis Tigers football team. Well, Memphis Tigers just in general. Obviously, with football and the opportunity prior to this past weekend against Navy of being one of the 12 teams in the college football playoff, something that would be just unprecedented, unheard of, and just an amazing feat for the university and that football program. Obviously, get, beat by Navy, a team that, you were giving 9.5 points to. You're on the road, don't get me wrong, but you allow them to score 50 plus points and you just can't keep pace. You end up losing the game. But in the midst of that, you end up losing the opportunity to join the Pac-12. So first thing I want to do, Jim, with you being in the area, talk to me a little bit about just the mindset of everybody after the loss to Navy.
I mean, around here, no one seems to be surprised. Yes, it's a major letdown because of what you said. Hopes and expectations of being in that 12th spot, but it's Navy. People talked about it all week leading up to it. Could be a trap game set right behind Florida State, one where we might go in there feeling too good and unprepared. And as you talked about, that defense couldn't have been less prepared. So sadly, in this city, they prepare themselves for the worst, and usually we get that.
So let me ask this: Is the negativity worse, or not negativity, but the disappointment worse because you layer in the lack of entering the Pac-12 conference on top of it, or is it just bad because we shouldn't have lost to that team?
It's bad because we have no business losing that team. It's what I said. I mean, lack of preparation. That team's not any better than Florida State at all. Their offense is different, so you just have to have your team ready and prepared. Defenses look great so far this year, flying all over the field, making big hits, and then you just let them score at will. So this is those times where you look at Silverfield and you say, "What the hell, dude? Like, this team doesn't look like they're prepared for this game at all."
Yeah, the one thing that I will say about him is he didn't call out defensive coordinator by name, but he basically said the defense has to be coached and they have to be prepared better. And obviously he did take the heat and say that starts with me, like this is on me. But he did kind of hint to the fact like, hey, I'm holding the defensive coordinator accountable. Like what I can't understand is how you're that ill prepared for something that you've had the whole entire off season to prepare for, because you know as well as I do, Navy is a wrinkle offense and you have to do some time preparing, and you can't just prepare the few days that you have after a big win against Florida State and go into it and go, "Oh, we got this." And granted, you did play your best defensive game, and I said this out of my mouth, that's the best defensive game that I might have ever seen them play, but then they backed it up. They bookend it with one of the worst defensive performances I've ever seen. So, um, is there an opportunity, do you think, for them to still make this playoff?
Mm, Probably not. I mean, it would depend on who Boise State lost to. I mean, you had the window open up even more because Northern Illinois had lost as well, but that win over Notre Dame is probably going to look better than your win over Florida State. And like I said, you would need Boise State to have an even bigger hiccup. I don't see it. I think Boise State's probably got it on lock.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up their schedule just to kind of look and see what they have, but yeah, I mean, I think is there a chance? It's college football, you know as well as I do. Anything can happen,
But the problem is you
especially.
didn't have belief that Memphis could go through Tulane, USF, and UTSA without losing based upon what you just saw. And that's just a hard belief within itself.
Yeah, and I also really I didn't believe that the other teams that were outside, our conference that are vying for one of those spots that aren't in the big four conferences, I didn't think they would go undefeated either. Even Boise State, even a team like UNLV, who has their own problems, in the news today. But I do think there's an outside chance, but they got to win every game. I think that you're going to have to get to the conference championship game and you're going to have to win it. And you're going to have to be a one loss conference champion. And the other conference champion, which I guess would be the Mountain West, um, you would have to, that person would have to have a one loss too. And I think you would have to compare, well, is the one loss Memphis team that won the American and is the American champion, are they better than the one loss conference champion from the Mountain West? So um a lot of things have to happen, but I think the big thing for Memphis is they need to put the being a part of the playoffs on the back burner, let that be the byproduct of going out and just winning each game. But there's a lot to be determined. I'm not gonna say no, but I'm gonna say it's a lot bleaker today than it was this time last week. Let me ask you this: as far as the Pac-12, what is your thought? I never asked you this, and I don't think we talked too much about it. But what is your thought on them deciding not to go?
They made it clear they feel like they're comfortable in the American Athletic Conference and what they've been provided with. And honestly, I think the American Athletic Conference is the best, G5, conference. So why even mess with it? And then you think about the travel and the schedule and having to go further around the country, and that's more money investment and just a pain in the ass. So if Memphis feels comfortable where they're at, I have zero problem with it because I don't think the Pac-12's name is going to hold the weight that it ever did before.
Unless they're able to get an automatic bid, that's when it begins to hold more weight. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but they got to get 8 teams first, which it looks like they're moving towards that. Um, but I'm I'm disappointed in the fact that you had you've had multiple opportunities to get out of this conference and better your chances of moving up a tier in the ranks of college sports, and not just football but basketball. Obviously basketball is a brand, and it has a better name and a long-standing tradition, a lot higher than that of the football team. So the conference, like, you can schedule non-conference in basketball because you can schedule more of them, um, and have an outside chance. But even now you're seeing that it's getting harder and harder for basketball playing in that conference to get not necessarily into the tournament. If you win games, you'll get in, but to get a good seed. I think this is a travesty on so many levels that you're not able to figure out how to get yourself out of the conference. And I get it. Maybe this go round financially and wasn't a fiscally responsible move for them to make, but at some point you have to take a leap of faith, you have to take a shot, you have to take a chance. And like, they're all hung up on there was no TV deal, there wasn't, a guaranteed play, because there's no conference. Like, who's going to guarantee them anything without the teams first? Go get your teams, and then we'll talk about how much we'll pay you to put you on TV. I just think it was a money situation and a fiscal, issue, and I get it. But other teams have figured it out, so why can't you? And I'm not even going to get into the 25 mil that it would take to get out of the American Conference for over the 7 that it took you to get in. Like, that's just unheard of to me. But um, I'll get off my soapbox, and we'll talk LSU. LSU beats UCLA. You were there. You had the opportunity to go. Um, what is your feeling on LSU? Do you think, are you a believer that they can make a push to get in a playoff spot, or are they who they are and they're the team that we saw give up a game to USC, and they're going to hang around or let the UCLA's of the world hang around, and they'll you know win a couple of SEC games that maybe they shouldn't, and they'll lose some that they shouldn't, but they are who they are. Is that the feeling, or do they have a legitimate shot of pushing for a spot?
I mean, they are who they are. They're definitely not a playoff team. Their defense just isn't good enough. Obviously, they made adjustments at halftime. Did not let UCLA score in the second half. Offense looked great all game, but take it for what you want. The offense really hasn't been a problem yet this year. The only times you really did have problems was Nussmeier making bad decisions. You typically get that with the gunslinger. But on defense, you just lost Harold Perkins Jr., which I don't even know how big of a loss it is because they don't know how to use him right. His freshman year, they blitzed him every single play. He was a monster. He was considered to be arguably the best linebacker in football. Now they put him out in coverage. If you watch him all game, he looks lost. He doesn't know what he's doing. So they misuse him anyway. So I don't know how big a loss that'll be, but nonetheless, he is your best defensive player. I don't know, man. Secondary gives up too many chunk plays. I don't think the defense, like, if you just look forward, right? I'm going to be there this weekend. It's South Alabama. They'll win that one, but I'm looking 2 weeks ahead, and there's no bigger fear I have than the 7-game home winning streak being snapped to Ole Miss, because this team, I think Ole Miss is one of the most fraudulent teams in football. Their fan base is delusional because their coach is delusional. He acts like an idiot. He promotes his team up the way he does. He makes his fan base believe they've ever won anything when they haven't. The Sugar Bowl is their greatest triumph. Their first 4 games were against middle school teams, and so they're talking about the records they're putting up and the stats they're putting up. And there's nothing I love more, because LSU is usually their first hard game in the season. It's nothing I love more than when LSU stomps that out, just like when we did, and they're ranked number 7, and our ignorant fan base ran the field when we had beaten them 6 straight times at that point. That's not even little brother. That's trash. Anyway,
That's the standard when you do it then,
yeah,
and you don't rushed the field on the standard, and
They
we
just
beat
did it because they're
that
ranked number 7 and undefeated,
right.
but they hadn't played competition up to them. They ended up getting 3 losses that season. That's what's gonna happen. Ole Miss got lucky. Bama is no longer on their schedule, but they do, however, have Georgia, who's gonna absolutely curb stomp them. But that's the one I want because I want to at least at minimal ruin their season. But I say all that to say the way Ole Miss offense does look and the way LSU defense looks, I have real trouble believing we're going to win that game. And I might not be too mad that I'm in South Bend while it's happening.
Let's paint a picture. Let's say, I mean, obviously we're gonna assume that they take care of business against South Alabama this weekend. They then next game is against Ole Miss. Let's say hypothetically they beat Ole Miss. They turn around the following week, they beat Arkansas, and then they go into a hostile Texas A&M environment. And I mean, if you can beat Ole Miss, theoretically you should be able to take care of business
I mean,
against Texas.
I'm not worried about Arkansas or A&M.
No, I'm just saying
it's Bama. It's Bama looming back there.
So does your mindset change if you win those games and you go into Bama with just that one loss to USC, a game that to me you gave away that you should have won? Does that change your mind on what they're capable of doing?
Yeah, it'll definitely give me a confidence boost. And when we beat them 2 years ago, when I was there, when they stormed the field for that one, Alabama was definitely a better team. Coming into that game, they were a better team after that game. So I mean, um, I could see you doing it. It would definitely give me confidence. I would say that also, if you were winning those games, that means your defense stepped up. But yeah, starts with getting like you said, South Alabama. But if they get Ole Miss, I'm not worried about Arkansas. I'm not worried about A&M. But then even when let's say you get Alabama, even though Tennessee handled Oklahoma, I think that said more about once again Tennessee and how good that defense is. So I mean, there's just a lot of tough games on that slate for LSU for me to be a believer that they could be in the top 12. I mean, they're right outside of it right now in the rankings, but I mean, they haven't really played anybody. That first game that they keep losing every year is really killing them. I like that they schedule it. I love having a real team and a real primetime game out the gate. So I don't want them to change that by no means. But they've lost it, 5 years in a row now, and it puts you behind the 8 ball every time.
Well, and it definitely doesn't help when a team like USC that beats you turns around and loses their, biggest game against Michigan. You really needed them to win so that the loss actually was a better loss because they're a better team. But I think you're going to look back and you're going to be pleasantly surprised going into Alabama because they're going to come in. They're going to come into LSU. It's going to be a good opportunity to win a good game and put you guys in the spot that you need to be in. And then if you get there and you're able, people forget about the USC game. If you can win the next 4 and go into Alabama with just that one loss.
I just know, you're talking about getting on your soapbox. I'm not going to take long with mine because we got our guests coming soon. But for the people who are all about the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, and yeah, I love it for different reasons, but I ultimately hated it from the get-go. And there was a reason, and you're seeing it right now. And it's the shift of opponents, like LSU not playing Mississippi State. That one bothers me because, they would have been coming to Starkville. So it's an easy drive for me. It would have been a dub. They're the worst team in the SEC. And so things like that, not playing Florida every year, which is my, most hated team, the game I look forward to. And so you don't have that. And so it's like, I hate this. Like, I'm excited that I'm going to go to the Oklahoma game at the end of the year just because it'll be a first time. And the last time we played them, we hung 70.5. But like, I don't know, man. I don't like losing the opponents that you traditionally know. And maybe I feel different after the season's over and we play new ones, but I'm not for it. I mean, it's just like the baseball schedule came out, and for the same reasons. I mean, it would have been LSU's turn to come to Ole Miss right down the road. I like going to Swayze. It's not on there. That's absolutely unacceptable.
Unacceptable. We got to do better with the scheduling, SEC. Tennessee destroys Oklahoma. Are you surprised by that? Obviously, defense, I mean, is
No, and
good.
I think the touchdowns don't even throw me off because they were fourth quarter late push.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, there's something to be said because Oklahoma didn't quit fighting, but I mean, Tennessee for 3 quarters absolutely made them look terrible.
Yeah. What's your take on Missouri? All right. You are Judge Jim, similar to Judge Judy. Are you charging Missouri with being fraudulent, or are you charging Vanderbilt with being good? And I
I
say
mean,
uses
I'm
the word
charging
good loosely.
Missouri fraudulent just because they've looked like that all season. Um, I talk about how Ole Miss is just beating the brakes off folks, but that's what you're supposed to do when you're a top 10 team. Missouri hasn't done that to anyone yet, which makes you think fraudulent. I think a lot of it's on the quarterback hype, rightfully so. Cook looked phenomenal last year, but I'm going to need to see them play somebody and beat them to believe. So as of right now, you just got to put them on fraudulent watch just because all you have is the results you have, and if you can't beat not very good teams with ease and even got to go into overtime, that's just a problem.
Yeah, beating Vanderbilt in double overtime is not the double overtime win that
I mean, yeah, if
you're
Vandy wins that game, you made their season. Like they would have knocked off a top 10 team. The rest of the football season wouldn't even matter, Vandy, because they lose. They're used to that. You would have been their national championship.
Yep, definitely. Um, NFL. We I don't know if you remember this, but a while back
I mean, I can't
we
forget.
said we said that Jaden Daniels should have been drafted over Caleb Williams, and it wasn't even a question. And I bet our boy Mike Hughes is after Monday night's game. I bet he was sick watching, what could have been but will never be the Chicago Bears future just in a different jersey having a really good performance. Um, do you expect Jaden to continue to play at that level? Is he going to get better? Is he going to have some struggles? Is he going to have that
I mean,
uh, learning curve that he hasn't technically had yet?
as a rookie, he will have, struggles, but I think he's only going to get better. If you looked, that 50-yard pass to Scary Terry was longer than any pass he actually had in college, and it was just put perfectly, in the basket. He makes throws like that regularly. In the NFL, he is actually not using his legs as much as people expected him to. And that was the thing, right? In college, the reason why he used his legs as much as he did, not only was it the offense that was being called, but his offensive line did not allow him much protection. If you look at the pocket that the Washington offensive line was giving him, that kid can throw absolute darts on the money if you give him time, and that's what he was doing. Um, there's a lot of people who felt like he was possibly going to be better than Burrow. I felt like that was asinine, and then they were going head to head, and I'm still not going to say that claim. Part of it was Burrow's offensive line is just still year after year atrocious. But you can't make a complaint about weapons that Burrow has. So, that's a whole nother debate for another day. But I think he's only going to continue to progress. But it goes back to the original discussion you had. Caleb Williams sucked for 6 games in a row in college, and yet somehow he was the undeniable number one. And we talked about it week after week, and I thought it was laughable. And somehow I'm glad he's not on this show anymore. Randy Jowers will still talk shit to me on a daily basis and tell me I don't know football because I don't think Caleb Williams is good. And he's not, and he's not, and he's not. However, Jaden Daniels is, and Jaden Daniels is the truth. And Caleb Williams is going to lead Chicago nowhere. And Chicago is going to be a bust organization for making that draft pick. The kid, he's going to blame everybody else. DJ Moore is already tired of playing with him. So Daniel, once again, it's just one of those things where they can just listen to In Off the Bench podcast, and they could have found out from me and you who to draft.
Oh, and to add insult to injury, you ship you ship your quarterback that you had that you didn't like that you wanted Caleb Williams to replace, and by the way, he's over there being undefeated with his team. So,
Pittsburgh, yeah. He all you had to do was not ask him to do too much.
yep. And let me ask you this: should Russell Wilson even get a chance to play right now?
No,
Or
you mess up team chemistry if you do that.
I think so
Um,
too. I
you don't
think
want you don't want to mess with that. Like you said, you're undefeated. Like I mean, you don't fix what ain't broke.
right. So Saints. Speaking of fixing and broken, Saints give one away to Philly. All right. I need Judge Jim back in court. All right. I need you to tell me, is Philly being charged with they are good and can do that and just come back and win and beat good teams? Or are you charging the Saints with not being quite as good as we thought they were?
The Saints not being quite as good because at the end of the day, you had two problems at the end of that game. First of all, 3rd and 16, your defense had been money all game. You called man to man instead of a zone that late in the game, which I don't know how the head coach, being a master defensive coordinator, makes that decision. You have two DBs run into each other, fall down, leave the tight end running down the sideline for 60 yards with a minute and a half remaining, all because you were in that defense. And so then you have to then rely on Derek Carr, who came back to reality and showed us he's still the guy that he always was. He'd shown us all game, really, playing scared. If the two games that we saw good Derek Carr, he had a clean pocket. If anybody breaks through, that dude just retreats backwards and just tries to throw it away, or he'll do a check down. And so Derek Carr is who he thought he was, and the Saints defense blew it when it mattered most, even though they're still a top 3 defense. But I think it says more about the Saints. I didn't see anything from Philly that was just special, but I do like
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley.
Well, I bet you do. So I think there's a little bit of overreaction with the Saints losing, and I think we're being harsh on them in the fourth quarter with defense. Yeah, some blunders. But in baseball, if someone went 3 for 4 and had their last 2 at bats were just awful strikeouts, like, or we'll say 3 for 5. The last 2 at bats they had were just 2 awful strikeouts. We would still say they had a pretty good day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's essentially what the Saints did. They shut these guys out for 3 quarters and gave up 2 blunderous touchdowns at the end of the game when it mattered most, yes, but we can't negate the fact that they put an offense away for 3 quarters that's arguably one of the most powerful offenses in the league at times and did it with ease. I think this is more an indictment on the Saints offense, and I don't know. I didn't watch the game. I'm just looking at stats and what people did and highlights. I think it could be play call, it could be the scheme that the Eagles are running against them, or it could be just Derek Carr himself. Um, but anyhow, from your team to my team, and then we'll get into the men of the hour. Dallas, I need to know what your take is on this so I know where I need to be overreacting, underreacting, or reacting exactly the way that I should be because I am just sick over this team. I need to know,
I think the
like,
reaction's proper because the defense getting gouged back-to-back games is problematic. They were supposed to be a top defense in the league, so if you're going to put the game on Dak's shoulders, that's not what this team needs to be or wants to be.
here's my problem with that. Okay. You paid the man as if you wanted him to be. You paid the receiver as if you wanted him to be. And yeah, the defense has a new defensive coordinator, which don't get me started on all that, but you scored 6 points in the first half. You scored 6 points in 3 quarters of football, and it took an onside kick to get you going and luck into a closer game than what it really should have been. And if you're having to luck your way into being close games with a team like the Ravens, then you're not ready to win a championship. And no wonder why you're 1-2 and 0-2 at home, which, given the stadium and the fans, that should be a place that is loud and nobody wants to play, but yet it seems like it's filled with other teams' fans more than it is Dallas.
New Orleans and Dallas are both the same in that respect. They get a lot of traveling tourists, so I mean that's kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just sick over it. It's got to be better. And before tomorrow night's game, hopefully I can get to a place where I feel okay enough and relaxed enough to enjoy watching them play, because right now I'm still a little amped up. But that's neither here nor there. What is here and there are two gentlemen that we had the opportunity to meet in Omaha. We basically became a member of their family, and they did us. Like, it was a really good week of baseball and camaraderie and just growing the game and meeting a lot of good people. And John, Nick, welcome to the show, gentlemen. And you guys, when I say we got to meet a lot of good people, you guys were catalysts in that, because I feel like, Jim, were they not like the first two people that we met while we were there? I feel
Yeah,
like,
outside of people I didn't know, yeah, they would be the
yeah.
first ones.
Yeah.
So welcome, gentlemen. How are we doing? John, start with you, man. How are
Sweet.
things? How
Great,
are you?
great. Good. It's great to see you guys. Good to be here. Yeah, I think the first people you would have met would actually been my mom, probably. I think she met you guys in the stands avoiding the heat. And then we kind of came over there and chopped it up, and it went from there. And that was a great time, but really happy to be here. Things are good with me. I'm here in Austin, Texas right now. But happy to be on, and good to see you guys
Hanging
again.
out with the number one team. I see you.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it looks like. But I was up in Ann Arbor for the Michigan Texas game. That was a tough one.
Oof. And you just go back and act like you were a Texas fan all the time.
No, never, never. If I'm here for more than maybe 3 years, I can transition. But I think right now, I mean, I'll always be blue through and through. But that was a tough one to go through. But it was nice to hear y'all talk about football actually before we hopped on, because we're big Ravens fans. So
Amen.
listening to that Dallas game, I was like, you guys are upset. We're also
Daniel.
pissed off with how it went. So, but yeah, everything's great with me. Hope you guys are doing good. How's it going?
Nick, is that true, man? Ravens fans?
Ravens through and through. I hope you guys can hear me all right. Let me know if not. Ravens through and through, man. John and I, born and raised in Ellicott City, Maryland, right outside Baltimore, 20 minutes a little west of it. And, you know, we're all Baltimore from the pro level. And to John's point, hearing DB talk about the Cowboys in that game brought a little smile to my face, hearing all the Ravens fans in that stadium down in Arlington.
Yeah.
We thought it was a cakewalk, and our father even texted us because our cousin's an Eagles fan. He's like, I love seeing this whooping the Eagles are doing. Our dad's like, hey, you better watch out. The Ravens are known for fourth quarter collapses, and little do we know that was great.
I mean, the Saints had owned the Eagles all game, even though they didn't score a lot of points. I mean, their defense was taking them to the woodshed, and for them to dominate the way they did and have the blunder they did, and it's one of those things in real time I was blaming players, and then, you know, when you listen to breakdowns by, you know, professional analysts, and being the fact that me and Daniel did play football, 3rd and 16 with a man to man doesn't actually make sense after I heard it. And so you shouldn't have had two dudes chasing on crossing routes and run into each other to begin with. And so once I saw that and thought about that, I was like, that is on the coordinator and that defense. And for them to be rock solid all game and then just give up Dallas Goedert running down the sideline for 50 yards. Oh my God, I was sick watching it.
Yeah, that was a tough one too.
Yeah, not to chime too much on football. I know other things to talk about, but that game, it just felt like both those teams, the Saints and Eagles, would go for it on a 4th and 1 and just get stuffed. And the Saints had so many chances to put it away, and they just kept going straight up the gut with Kamara, it felt like. And maybe, I didn't watch the game all the way through.
That's a thing. That's a game within a game. Most people don't understand. Daniel knows because I'll talk about him ad nauseum. He's actually my favorite Saint. Somebody who did not play in that game was the Swiss Army knife, Taysom Hill.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and if you watch him this year, he's lined up more snaps at the fullback than he has anywhere. He's been Kamara's lead blocker. So when you look at Kamara's lack of success on the ground, you can't help but wonder if that was a significant part of it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. He's a beast, Taysom Hill.
I mean, I
kind of got a man crush. Daniel has made fun of me. He kind of makes me sweat here and there.
I thought we were gonna go this whole episode without hearing Taysom Hill, and here we are. Here we are. I mean, it took Tyler O'Neill going to the Red Sox for him to stop talking about him.
There's always this one guy on my teams. Like, I don't know, man. I always just sweat them hard. I don't roll like that, but and they usually, they're usually doing something, hitting bombs like Tyler O'Neill or truck sticking like Taysom. So, I mean, they got to do something phenomenal. They can't just be average Joes, of course.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. So let's get into this, guys. Obviously, Baltimore guys from the area. John, let me ask you, where you guys are from. If I went there today, what's the one thing that I need to do, see, taste, touch, feel, eat? What is the one thing?
Well, that's a good question. So we grew up like a little bit outside of Baltimore in a town called Ellicott City. I'd say the one thing you need to do if you've been to Maryland, just anywhere in Maryland, is get some crabs or get crab cakes.
Amen, brother. Amen. Amen.
There's some places close to Baltimore. Jimmy's Seafood's a famous one for Baltimore. That's the place that a lot of like Ravens Orioles players will go to a lot, but also just like a huge favorite of the locals as well. So I'd say try some crabs, and I don't know. Other than that, like we live in like a suburb, and there's fun stuff to do, but nothing that's like, oh, this is the spot. I don't know. Nicholas might be able to hit on something, but that's all I got. I think try some crabs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, crabs through and through. That's what Maryland staple is. I'll give a little shout out to our hometown spot, Kelsey's Irish Pub. That's right down Route 40 in between Ellicott City, Catonsville, on the way to Baltimore. John and I both work there. Amazing atmosphere for games. They have a pub side and a family restaurant side, so definitely check that out.
So, Daniel, you go get the crab cakes. I'm going to hit the pub.
There you go.
There's one thing I learned. Maryland is crab cakes and football.
Amen.
Crab cakes and football.
Hopefully,
I don't do crab cakes. I'm just, like I said, I'll stick to the pub.
I hear you.
No, the pub's got good food too, though. You'll be good there.
Outside of that, I mean, if you've never been to Camden Yards, like that's renowned as one of the top stadiums. We're lucky enough to grow up in that neck of the woods and go to a ton of Orioles games growing up. So definitely check a game out at Camden Yards. Downtown Inner Harbor is gorgeous as well. And Annapolis. I mean, Annapolis, Maryland, if you've never been there, the Naval Academy is based there. Gorgeous sailboats, great restaurants, great atmosphere.
That would be absolutely what I'm going to do, because I was a Navy guy. But Daniel, let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to go to Camden Yard, and you know why? I'm going to talk about it one more time on this show. I went and watched Jackson Holiday play, and he went 1 for 13. 1 for 13 with a boot single. And then this dude just goes on this crazy run right after. Screw that dude and screw the Orioles.
That guy's going to the playoffs now, so you can have that. I guess, let's talk family life. Obviously, Nick, we got to meet Mom. From the looks of it, or from what I could tell, it seemed like you guys had a very close, tight-knit family. How big or how small is the family? You got brothers, sisters, other than the two of you, mom, dad in the picture? Like, what does the family tree look like? Is it big? Is it like an oak tree, or is it like a little palm tree?
Well, it depends how wide we want to go in the family. In our direct family, it's just John and myself as the siblings, and then my mom and dad. Traditional family, parents are still together, and I think we're fortunate. I don't know nowadays how many people can say that, but we grew up in a great household. From an extended family, I think we have around 19 to 20 cousins at this rate. So we have a large extended family, all different type of athletes. I think just athletic blood is in our bloodline, right? A lot of our cousins played Division I lacrosse outside of baseball. Like John played Division I played Division III, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the differences. But great, great family, extended family athletes, and then just John, myself, my mom and dad. And I guess to talk a little bit about that dynamic, I mean, just from a childhood standpoint, they really put us in all sports, right? Their thing was we want you to be as busy as possible, and I think that's how you kind of stay out of trouble. Just keep your kids busy and let them find their way. And so John and I played every sport you can imagine growing up. I mean, football, soccer, lacrosse. I did baseball and lacrosse at the same time for a few years. But yeah, I mean, mom and dad, little flip of that outside of like the modern family. Like my mom was really the staple worker, and my dad was more of a stay-at-home dad. Like he would take us to our sports. He did most of the cooking, and he was really taking us to all our like extracurricular activities. So a little different dynamic than I guess a traditional household, but it worked out perfectly. And I think John can add a little bit more to anything I missed, but I don't think we trade our childhood and family life really for anything.
Well, with that, John, you guys obviously with the lacrosse players, you guys being baseball guys, I'm sure just the competitive nature within the family had to be crazy. Was it helpful growing up to be that competitive, or looking back on it, you're like, man, we were out of control. Like that was just too much.
No, it was never too much. But I mean, there was times where probably it felt like too much, or my parents thought we were a little too crazy. Me and my brother would like compete in like everything basically. But well, I loved playing all sports. I remember playing lacrosse and baseball at the same time. I only played lacrosse for a couple of years. And then growing up, there's always a little beef between baseball and lacrosse and all the players there. That was another whole dynamic. But yeah, I played football as well for a couple of years. Soccer. When we were younger, I mean, I just think it's a really fun thing to do. It's fond memories looking back on it. Sometimes, like, when I think about how I was feeling in the moments, there was definitely times where I was like, I don't want to go to practice. I don't want to go to this game. Like, just normal childhood complaints. I'd be complaining about something else if I wasn't going to the games, I'm sure. So,
John, I'll say the majority of athletes that we have that come on here, and Daniel will attest to this, the ones who only played baseball do not understand. The guys who come on here and said they played a little bit of everything, whether soccer, football, or anything in between, said it made them a better overall athlete, told them they had a better mindset to all these different things. I think every kid should experience. I'm not trying to knock anybody's parenting, but when you put your kid in baseball year round, starting from the age 6, you're really denying them a lot of opportunities.
I totally agree.
Yeah, coaching here in Tampa, we would have guys that were from Florida, from the Tampa Bay area, and they were mentally weak just because they had never had any struggles outside of baseball. And I would say like mentally weak, like they let things outside of the field affect their play on the field. They couldn't compartmentalize my girlfriend broke up with me, or I had a bad, issue in class. I did bad on a test or whatever the case was. But we would get guys from the Northeast that played lacrosse, that played multiple sports because you couldn't play baseball year round and you were having to do different things. They came in and they handled baseball, the game of failure, a lot better mentally than any of the guys from Florida. And I think that had a little bit to do with it because you're just a more balanced athlete in terms of successes and failures and learning and developing and having to like balance all of these different things, as opposed to someone who is just very one-sided and like their lens only opens one way. But Nick, I see the Catholic baseball sweatshirt. Where did you guys go to high school? Was it Catholic?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? John and I went to public school all the way until high school. Our high school is Mount St. Joseph High School, based in Irvington, Maryland. It's right in between Baltimore County and Baltimore City. And, played in the MIAA, which is athletic conference there. Some staples come out of there. Mark Teixeira played at Mount St. Joseph. Gavin Floyd. Is that accurate, John?
Yeah.
Gavin Floyd. There's a couple of our rival high schools. Gilman's produced some studs. There's a guy in the White Sox right now. No, Gavin Floyd, I think. Anyhow,
Gavin Floyd was on the White Sox.
Yeah, he went to Gilman.
There's Gavin Sheets.
Gavin
Sox right now. He's been up and down, I believe.
Yeah, anyhow. Yep, went to Mount St. Joseph High School in Baltimore, Maryland. Really good athletic, prowess conference from all sports, basketball, lacrosse, baseball, soccer even. We played schools such as Calvert Hall, Loyola Blakefield, McDonough, which is a prowess in lacrosse and really all spectrums of the sports. But, a little dynamic. I don't know down in Florida or like a lot of the guys you talk to that go to different schools, the all-male private school dynamic. When John and I went there, like a lot of our friends went to public schools, and that was a little bit of a change for both of us since it wasn't something we'd experienced before. But I think, once again, it provided great structure, allowed us to, go through failure and learn how to operate. It was poised as like a college preparatory school, so really put you academically, challenged you, and I think it prepared us to go to the colleges we went to. John went to some very, academic prowess universities in his career, and not that I didn't go to one, but he definitely got me beat on that front.
Daniel, what would I have done? Because I only went to high school for football and girls, and if girls were eliminated, do I just not show up till football practice?
Jim missed a whole year of school in the 4 years of all. Like, if you added up all his absences, I think it was like a year of school that he missed.
Our favorite story to tell people, and it's not a lie. So going into my senior year, they were like, "Hey, you have to go back and take 10th grade English." I'm like, "Excuse me?" And they're like, "Yeah, you didn't meet the attendance requirements to pass." I'm like, "But I passed the class." They're like, "You still have to attend the mandatory days." So senior year, I would go from 12th grade English in second period to 10th grade English in third.
Wow.
That's hilarious. You're in both English classes.
But it's okay, Daniel, because I would still leave school every day at fourth period and skip government and everything else. So I made
it work. You made it work.
Well, I'll add something real quick, Jim and Daniel. It's, we had some sister schools. There was a lot of private Catholic, female schools around us. So, not in school did we see girls, but outside of school, we had a lot of female friends, and I guess I'll leave it.
Yeah, no, we're used to that. There's the big time powerhouse in sports in Memphis where we're at is Christian Brothers, which is all male, and then they, we knew guys who would tell us how it works, but they had the best of academics and athletics. So when you describe yours, that's exactly what we picture. So we get definitely an idea of what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's apparent that, there was academics was a focus, because when you go out of public school and you go into private school, I'm sure there was a conversation that was had with you guys where, hey, it's probably going to be ratcheted up a little bit. You got to be on your game. But, John, both of you guys were academic standouts. Was this something that your parents was like, hey, like, this is, if you want to be an athlete, you got to do academics first? Or was that something where you got into school and you're like, oh, like, I need to step up my game, I need to take care of business? Or was it something totally different that allowed you to really dominate academically?
Yeah, I'd say growing up, like, I guess academics was just set to like a decent standard. Like, our parents like wanted us to succeed, but it was never anything too strict, too much pressure on us or anything. One thing I definitely remember is, my dad and parents, they didn't put any pressure on us to like play college sports. That was all up to us. I remember wasn't even until my sophomore year of high school I really said, hey, I want to go for it and play college sports. But at the time, my dad said, hey, let's use baseball to get kind of the best education that you can. And so I wanted to play pro, but it was still like academic. I'm going to use baseball to get to the best school I can. And it kind of worked out for me. I was a late bloomer in high school when it came to getting recruited and all of that. So all of the offers I had were mostly walk-on when it came to D1 offers. They were all walk-on, really. So then Brown University offered me, and Ivy League doesn't do any scholarships, so I wasn't really like losing out on the money side of things when I went there, and I just used it to get the best education I could, and it worked out. I mean, obviously, I'd say like the South is probably a little bit better for baseball, but there's still some good schools down there. But yeah, I'd say just school was never like anything too crazy to me. I wouldn't say I'm like a whiz kid or anything like that for sure.
Bro, you can't get into Brown unless you're smart as
You'd
hell.
be surprised about some of the kids.
No, hey, I'm telling you, ain't nobody from around here getting in Brown that I know.
You're not gonna play the humble card, and you're not gonna sit here and lie to my face. I know what it's like.
No, I'm not saying I'm stupid, but I'm definitely not like a genius. Like I wouldn't have gotten into Brown without baseball. I know that. But it definitely was academic challenge a little bit. I honestly thought Michigan was even more of an academic challenge for me. And there's a couple of different things that could factor into that. I think number one, baseball being more of a commitment at that level. Just kind of the expectations, the amount of hours, the goals of the team. And then number two, I was kind of like, I had to pack my schedule in. Transferring was crazy. Just how, like, I actually got credits slashed and stuff, even though I was from Brown. So my schedule was tough, and I was taking harder courses because I was later on in my like college tenure. So I thought Michigan was a little bit
we've
harder,
heard down here forever. We're getting kind of ahead of ourselves because we're not to the college part. But Daniel, I mean, for as long as I can remember, I always heard that Michigan, outside of the Ivy League, was the most elite academic school. Haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, they long-standing tradition. Obviously, when you've been around as long as they have, like academics is a big deal. Like you have to have a foundation, and the foundation is obviously for all colleges the academic piece, and then everything else comes after that. But yeah, everything that we've ever heard about Michigan has always been it's a very academic institution where the degree means something to people.
Mm-hmm.
Down in the South, the school that is really recognized, and unfortunately for that means they're not very good at sports. It's Vandy, right? We've had guys on here that went to Vandy and thought
you take that back. They took Missouri to double overtime.
I'll put it
to
you guys this way. One of the first, I would literally say, best episodes, because we had a guy, Hayden Leatherwood, who came on here and told his story, and he even said he'd never told it to anyone before. So it felt really cool that he opened up and really just got vulnerable with us. But he basically, in high school, because he was so good at baseball, never had to do his schoolwork, went to Vandy, thought he was going to pull the same stunt, was flunking every class, and didn't even make it to the first fall practice before he left home. And he said he had to pull over on the side of the road and tell his mom that he was quitting. He ended up having to go JUCO ball, ends up going to Ole Miss, wins the national championship. And so it's a good story in the long whole thing of it. But he went to Vandy, a school like that regards itself no different than Michigan or Brown or anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care how good you are at baseball. If you can't do the schoolwork, you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. I mean, our dad went to SMU, and he told us the story like he didn't prioritize school his freshman year, and then his report card somehow got sent to his parents, and he was like flunking all classes. And so it's just neat to hear the dynamic of these athletes as well who in high school, it's kind of like The Last Chance Youth. You've ever seen that show? Like all these kids are stud athletes, and then they have all these offers, but then the time they graduate, they don't actually have the academic credentials to accept the offers, and they have to go the JUCO route. Like it's really interesting to see that take place in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, we can that. I'm not gonna do this like that, but that was Jalen Battles, right? He had offered to play Texas baseball. Next thing you know, he's playing JUCO.
Yeah.
Exactly what it was.
Coach JB.
Yeah, Coach JB.
Nick, your 2-year varsity baseball standout, highlighted by a 3-run home run against Gonzaga, DC. Your senior year semifinal appearance in the MIAA playoffs. Junior year, named by Perfect Game, the 2017 Atlantic Regional Honorable Mention, 17 and under WWBA. That's World Wood Bat Association, for those that don't know. National Championship All Tournament teams. How is the high school baseball in Maryland? I know, the Northeast, it can be pretty competitive, but in Maryland alone,
you mentioned the district teams, but when you start getting all state accolades, we want to know it as a state now.
Yeah. It's really interesting, right? I mean, like, I think John mentioned earlier, like southern states, and you guys mentioned it, like Florida, maybe where you guys live in Tennessee, right, with the weather being very advantageous to play year-round or most of the year. I would say the southern states definitely have the advantage, and a lot of talent comes out of those states. I think in Maryland in general, and I don't want to like specifically talk about like the private school conference we went to, because there's some extremely talented players in the public school scene as well. It's really hard to compare it to other places. I would just say, like, from a high school standpoint, the teams that we played at Mount St. Joseph were very competitive. Like, there was not one school you could say, like, oh, this is going to be a breeze game. Every game is going to be competitive. You have to bring your A game every game. Pretty much every team has a couple kids that are going Division I, whether that's, high Division I, low Division I, and then also, like, a ton of D2 and D3 talent, like myself. And then outside of that, there's a travel ball scene, right? So you're playing in the travel ball, a lot of kids from the Maryland, PA, Virginia area, and you'll go to perfect game events, which are, attract a larger pool of talent from a larger geographical standpoint. But then there's some also regional tournaments. And at those regional tournaments, man, there are some studs, right? There's this guy at Brandon Dorsey, who went to Calvert Hall, jumped around to FGCU, then JUCO route. I mean, I remember that guy was like a man amongst boys growing up. So to answer your question, I mean, it was extremely competitive, and it's hard to really compare it to anywhere else. I mean, John, do you have any specific stories or any other comparisons you would add to that?
Yeah, I think you're kind of right. Like, obviously, Maryland's no Florida, it's no California, no Texas when it comes to baseball, but
they mentioned other states, but they didn't even mention the best two in baseball, Daniel.
What's that for you guys?
It's just Georgia and Mississippi.
Georgia.
Okay, I can see Georgia for sure. I don't know about the Mississippi baseball scene, but I'll trust your judgment there.
I'm gonna tell you right now and that's how this show actually got started. If you go North Mississippi per capita, there's more D1 college players than you will find anywhere in the country, and they're all making it to the pro level too. It's actually how we got into this. Me and Daniel were interviewing.
They're very good golfers in Mississippi.
I bet.
We started by interviewing the local high school guys, and then built our way up because they were all going to Mississippi State, Ole Miss, straight to the pros like Austin Riley. And so that's kind of actually how we built our niche in this. So Mississippi, don't sleep on it.
I'll remember that. Yeah. I'll lock that one in. I like that you're right.
But everything else in Mississippi sucks, just to be clear.
It's just some good baseball, though.
Pretty accurate. But John, I didn't forget about you, man. First team All MIAA. You're defensive MVP, outstanding pitcher, first team All Maryland. As a senior, you had 86 strikeouts, 58 innings with a .84 ERA. Pretty dominant, I would say. Pretty dominant on the
one ERA. It's all right.
I mean, people couldn't even score a run against you, man. These guys are a bunch of wackadoos up there. No, I joke, John. I will say, obviously, when you have those kind of stats, you are excelling at a level. But what was your pitch arsenal like? What mix of pitches were you using? What made you successful? Was there one pitch over another, or was it just the ability to just command the strike zone and throw a lot of strikes and let hitters just hit themselves out?
Yeah, no, I think it was, it's kind of funny looking back on high school baseball. I would love to talk about it. It was my glory days, so that was a lot of fun. And I'd say my best pitches, I just really threw a four-seam fastball and a curveball for the most part. I also threw a splitter. But my senior year, it felt like kind of my velocity had picked up that year. And I was able to kind of get guys off with the fastball, and my curveball was kind of like top notch at the time. It was my go-to pitch, my strikeout pitch. I could throw it whenever, and kids and most players in Maryland at the time couldn't really hit a good curveball. It felt like, so that was my go-to. It was definitely just kind of like rising four seam and then a curveball off of it. They were really fun.
I'm not going to throw any names out there, but there's another guy on this podcast who said you couldn't blow it by him.
Who I couldn't blow hit by him?
Yeah.
Who was it? There was a couple good players.
It ain't me because I didn't play baseball.
Is it high school or no?
No, his name rhymes with Ricolas.
Nick said he could hit off you any day.
Nick told me, he pulled me to the side. He goes, "Look, my brother's going to talk about how his velocity jump. He couldn't throw it by me."
I wish I sent you a video. I wish I sent you guys a video that you could share.
You got to hit off me for sure.
We were I forget if it was like COVID time or whatnot, but it was John was going to Brown that year. I think he just graduated, and we bring him out to a field. I have a couple of former high school teammates come off, and we're just trying to get work in. And I had a line drive right back up the middle and almost took his head off. Love that video, and I pimp my bat and do a little skip down the baseline. But I'll give it to him. We actually faced in a summer ball league once, and there's a video of him striking me out, which I can't believe
about that.
Can't believe I'm saying, but
yeah, that was good times. Yeah, we faced off once in game. That was fun. But yeah, that one day, it was during like COVID summer. I don't know. It might have just been the summer before I went off to college, and we were just getting some 1v1s. And I think that was the first time we ever really faced each other in baseball.
Yeah.
Pitcher versus hitter.
Daniel,
it was good.
I was at that AA game. It reminds me of this scenario, guys. I was just a AA game, and two best friends who were roommates every year together at Wake Forest, knew each other from travel ball, everything before, been best friends forever. Anyway, one's playing for Rocket City, one's playing for Biloxi. Anyway, if the dude before Brock doesn't try to extend his double to a triple and get thrown out, he's going to face him, and I'm living for this moment. The mom, however, she's like, I don't want them to face each other. I don't want somebody to hurt some feelings. And I am living for this. Somebody's fixing to get bragging rights, and this jabroni tries to stretch it for a triple. Somebody was going to – I was like – and I asked Brock, I was like, I mean, what was going to happen? And he's like, I'm taking him yard. And I'm like, I can't believe we didn't get to see this moment.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That guy who stretched the triple, man, that's like the fun in the game. It's playing against people that you might know or – someone that you grew up with. It's always kind of a little funny, especially with a pitcher-hitter matchup, just like the mind games.
He already had the bragging rights because you might you know who Rhett Lauder is, who went up for the Reds this year?
For sure.
So Brock Wilkin was his teammate at Wake, who I was referencing. And Rhett Lauder only gave up one run in AA ball this year, and it was when Brock Wilkin. You remember that clip I sent you, Daniel? I think it's still traveling. I think that thing went 650 feet.
Wow.
And the only run he gave up, that's how you know when you've seen a dude stuff a lot at practice.
That's true.
Yeah, definitely.
True.
All right, so let's get into it, Nick. Obviously you decide college is for you. So you choose Catholic. Why Catholic?
Yeah, I think every guy's goal and gal's goal is if they're an athlete in high school and they want to play in college is to go to Division I. So obviously did the whole recruitment route, went to a bunch of showcases, perfect game. And, I had some interest from low-level Division Is, and nothing really came to fruition. And I really realized, if I wanted to continue playing ball at the next level, it was to go either D2 or D3. And I think, to John's point earlier, like our parents' thing was always to try to take baseball at advanced or academic, collegiate, the schools that we could get into and attend. And so Division III has higher academic standards than most Division II schools, from my understanding. So I ended up going the Division III route, and Catholic University, it was, it offered everything. Right in Washington, D.C., it has its own campus, so in Northeast D.C., so it's not like George Washington, where the schools in the city, you have a campus, you have like the suburban feel, beautiful, smaller school vibe. I always felt like I gravitated toward the smaller school vibe, about like 4,000 undergraduates. And from an athletic standpoint, Catholic University baseball had always been like fairly competitive, like cracking the top 25 rankings year in, year out, winning or finishing top in the Landmark Conference, which we play in, and really just they were one of the first major schools to show interest in me. And after, going through the Division III route and, seeing all the other schools that I had interest in, it just felt like home for me. So to answer your question, just felt like the location of the school, the competitive nature of the baseball team, really is what kind of sold me on Catholic University.
All right, John, you obviously have the opportunity to go to Brown. So when I think about you going to Brown, I think, okay, well, there had to be more opportunities. So why was it Brown? Did you just want to solidify to your brother that you were the smartest of the two?
That might have been part of it. Who knows? But no, it was. I touched on it, I guess, a little bit earlier. Like kind of using baseball to get a good education. I had, set like D1 aspirations, but I wasn't. Like I said, I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to baseball. Like I was even playing JV ball my sophomore year, and like junior year, I pitched all right, but I wasn't throwing crazy hard. I was mid 80s, so I didn't have like any crazy opportunities right out of college. I had like a couple walk-on offers at Richmond, maybe Lafayette. I'm trying to think back to it, but nothing that was like,
You had
wow.
Wofford.
Wofford might have been the first, or Richmond was the first one. I had an offer from Wofford that I had to decide between them and Brown at like the same time, but nothing too crazy. And like I said, I wasn't opposed to maybe going D3, but the only school I would have done that to was probably Catholic because of their coach over there, Bobby Picardo, was selling me hard on it. But I ended up just, not a ton of money was involved in these offers. So I said, let's get a good education. Like I never thought about going Ivy League. Like I said, I'm smart, but not like Ivy League smart. So it was like, well, this is a pretty cool opportunity. Like this is pretty awesome. So I was super psyched up about it. It's probably the most excited I was about any of the offers, and loved the campus. Coaches clearly wanted me there, and so that's kind of what factored
Shouldn't have
into it
slept
for
on
me.
Wofford. They've made multiple regionals.
They're good.
I'm just saying.
No, they're good. I wasn't sleeping on them at all. It was more just like,
You're saying they're not smart enough for you. I got what you said. No,
Wofford is a midweek giant killer, man. They play every SEC team during the midweek, and they always beat them.
You always see them ruining some seasons. We actually played them at Brown. It might have been my first ever college game. I think first game I pitched in our first series was against Wofford, actually. So
there you go. They were like, you see that prick right there? He didn't even want to come here.
I was so psyched up for that game. It's the first outing as a freshman. I'm like, oh, these guys wanted me here. Like, I got to show them that, like, they missed out or something. And, but yeah, it was good times. But yeah, it was really just the school part of it. I wanted to play pro ball, but, nothing's ever promised. So I figured, hey, I can go pro anywhere. Why not get a good education and be set?
Well, as we break into college, we're going to start with the better of the two when it came to athletics, because Nick has told me that he was better than you at baseball.
He was a stud.
Nick appeared in 17 games in 2019, batting .292, holding it down in the outfield. Talk about your freshman year at Catholic. Freshman year is always the best year to talk about what you learned, right? For a lot of guys, they talk about it's a lot of things they didn't expect, whether we're talking about the baseball on the field itself or we're talking about the nutrition, the weight room, just so much learning that comes in with that freshman year.
Yeah, I think the thing you don't really think about is you're playing against like young men. So you go in there and you have like these seniors, and the seniors we had from a pitching staff perspective were filthy at the time. David Gately, John Mearswa, like all landmark guys throwing like low 90s, even at the D3 level. So going in, having those inner squads and seeing like these guys that have been in college for 4 years who are going through what you said, like the nutrition, the weightlifting programs, you're like, okay, like I have to step my game up to another level. I'm not guaranteed a spot. I have to fight for everything, in front of me. And so, just that was the biggest thing that jumped out at me from a freshman year standpoint going into college was, the talent of the guys and the physical nature of them. I went into college. I'm 200, 205 right now. I think going to college, I was like 180 with skinny, playing guys who are in this weight program for 4 years. So that was the first thing that jumped out at me. The second thing was, just because it's Division III, from my perspective, like the level of talent was very, very apparent. In the fall, we inter-squatted the Naval Academy, which was like one of the coolest experiences ever. We went to Annapolis, we played them, seeing the competitive nature and talent that those guys had. So that was a sweet experience. And I think learning, not to be cliche, but kind of learning the buy-in it takes. Like if you want to be good and you want to see the field, you're gonna have to put in the hours outside of the scheduled practices. And so there are some guys on the team in the winter when it's cold in DC, come December, January, our season will start late February and be freezing come like our initial game time. Like putting any time in the cage on their own, going out to the field with a couple guys. And so, learning the habits that it takes to, scratch the starting lineup, right? I think that was the hardest part from a freshman year standpoint. I really came in with the plus arm, plus speed, and the bat that was lagging. That was really the main thing that led me to go Division III. And so really putting in the time and effort from a hitting standpoint in the cage, and then just learning the habits from the older guys. Those were the biggest takeaways and challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. You maximized your opportunity. You took a lot from it, and that's why you see a lot of guys that will transition up from JUCO or D3 and everything, and you found yourself defending, and it's one of those things. Me and Daniel will never knock it. We've seen guys that have went from that level all the way to Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
So I mean, any level of baseball, when you make it to that next level, and like you said, you put in that work ethic and you learn different things. And with some guys, to give y'all guys an example, most people don't realize it, but Ben Joyce, who's just threw the fastest pitch in pro baseball, he went to Tyler Junior College, and the reason is because he didn't until his freshman year. He shot 9 inches, and his hero jumped 12 miles an hour. So you never know where you might start or where you might go. But John, on your freshman year, man, you had the unfortunate nature of COVID. You had 3 appearances, you made 2 starts before it came and took it away. We've had a lot of athletes that were affected by COVID, but I think you honestly are going to be the one that took it the worst, because we've never had it affect them for more than a season. You, however, had it take 2 seasons away. So, man, talk about. You're excited. You're in college. You went to Brown, obviously, like you said, for academics, but you were there to play baseball, and you have that stripped away. So, mentally, physically, man, just talk about going through that process.
Yeah, that was a tough time, crazy time. Freshman year at Brown was awesome. Like the fall there was kind of everything you could have wanted it to be. It was all pre-COVID, so everything was just a lot of fun, made a ton of friends, and the team was great. I think we had relatively high expectations for that team. A lot of good seniors on the team that were good leaders. Richie Chufo, Garrett Delano, who maybe played pro ball for a little bit, and then he's actually on the Savannah Bananas right now. Or he's on the Party Animals. He plays on their opposing team. Charlie Bielenson, who pitched at Duke, was there. He was just one of their reliever of the year for maybe the ACC, or I don't know if it was all of college baseball. He was a stud though. So a lot of good players, and a lot of high hopes. But yeah, COVID stripped it away. I remember we were kind of the first people that anything got canceled for. So it was before NBA went down, before the whole world shut down, the Ivy League sports shut down, and everything was sitting pretty. We had 12 games. Yeah, I pitched in 3 of them. A lot of fun, a lot of high expectations, feeling good about the season. And then there was after our 3rd weekend, we got back home, and our captain, Richie Chufo, said something like, hey, this coronavirus is going around. I don't think it's going to affect us, but just know it could affect something. And we were like, all right, whatever. And then the next day at practice, we had an administrator come onto the field and say, hey, this thing's going around, but don't worry about it, business as usual. And then the very next day, we're all heading out to practice, and then someone's like, nah, head back to the locker room. We're heading back to the locker room, and we're all like, man, who got in trouble? What's going on? And then we hear rumblings that the lacrosse team got called off the field, and we're all just sitting there yo, what is happening? We're thinking probably coronavirus, but we don't really know. And then our coach comes in after 10 minutes of us just debating on what's going on, and he had tears in his eyes right away and told us the season was canceled, and we were shocked. I remember utterly shocked. I remember I can't even explain the feeling. I'm getting chills thinking about it, just knowing wow. First I'm damn, this is my freshman year. I felt like I was gonna earn a starting role, felt like I was gonna be a big part of this team, and then realizing dang, these seniors, man, this was their last go around. This was their season, their team. So instantly just felt heartbroken for them. A lot of tears in that locker room, and then a lot of anger right after, I remember, because we didn't know how serious it was. We didn't know, NBA hadn't shut down, so I remember a couple kids are tweeting things out. We're all pissed off, but then a day or even a few hours later, NBA shuts down. We're okay, we can't really be mad anymore. The whole world's going down.
But here's the thing, and this is what I touched on with you though. We've had hundreds of athletes that were affected by that, but We didn't have anyone have their second year take.
Yeah.
You
No,
talked about being mad, man. And you're seeing everybody else play,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's the feelings then?
Yeah, no, that was real anger, and that one was deserved, I think, for sure. We were all there's so much that goes into it, but we were all hopeful for the second season. Really didn't think that it was a possibility until they announced fall sports are canceled. Football might be in the spring. We're like, what the heck is going on? Then I'm thinking we're screwed. At the time, me and a bunch of teammates had a great time. We moved actually down to Florida, trained at Crusty Sports Facility down there in Palm Beach because nothing was available on campus to train on. So that sophomore year fall, I was living in Florida with teammates, had the time of our lives, man. It was awesome. But then they tell us, hey, you got to come back to campus and be an in-person student. Even though all classes are virtual, you have to be on campus, be an in-person student if you want to be able to play your season, if there is one. And we're like, what the heck? Okay, whatever. So we all go back to campus thinking that there might be a season, and then they cancel it like a month after being on campus.
You were just fine in Florida. No reason to mess with you.
No, it was terrible.
I was actually surprised to hear you say.
I heard coronavirus wasn't a thing in Florida. That's just
it wasn't. It was the dream world.
I'm just saying.
Daniel, you was just as scared as anybody. Moving on.
I mean, yeah, because I got kids, man.
But no,
I mean,
honestly, I was surprised to hear you say you went to Florida. I was thinking, with Nick having a canceled season, y'all might have had that opportunity where the beauty of having two brothers that play baseball, maybe you go back home and y'all put in some time together and, iron sharpens iron type of thing. I mean, Nick, did y'all get together at all? I mean, what'd you do during your off, when COVID cut your season short?
Yeah, it was, John definitely has the crazier experience with the 2 seasons canceled. I just remember we were Catholic University baseball. We'd always take a trip down to Myrtle Beach for our spring, like when all schools would go on spring break. We'd go to Myrtle Beach, play a plethora of JUCO and Division III schools, and not like a tournament, but just round robin, play 7 games in like 4 days type deal. And we're on the bus home from Catholic University, from Myrtle Beach back to DC. And then someone on the bus is like, guys, the NBA just shut down. What is going on? And from there, our coach is like, all conference games are halted. Like, we had a conference opener that Tuesday. That game got postponed. And our coach was like, to John's point, I think his coach was very he fought for his players in the team. Like, Roston Toy is our head coach. Bobby Ricardo is our associate head coach. They were both like, we're going to schedule anyone and whoever. Long story short, our season gets canceled. We go. I went home. John and I during COVID, we went home for a while and we played a lot of Xbox together. Won a lot of NBA championships on 2K, and we had a lot of baseball catches in the yard. And we were lucky enough to right across our neighborhood was a HCYP. It was a bunch of rec baseball fields. So we had that right at our location. So we would go there and throw, and we'd run sprints and stay in as best shape as possible. But I guess to kick it back to John, like that second year, I was lucky enough to have a mini season. We didn't have out of conference games. We had a makeshift conference schedule where we only played conference games, and then we did have a conference tournament, and then there were like D3 regionals that year, such as I think there was a D1 College World Series that unfortunately the Ivy League never had a chance to even participate or compete to make. But so like we stayed together for that first COVID year. Then the second COVID year, Catholic University and the Landmark Conference had a makeshift season. So I was back at school and John was back down in Florida training. And I think that's kind of when he decided like the Ivy League wasn't prioritizing athletics. And I don't want to steal your thunder, John, so you can kind of.
No, you're right.
Before he gets into that, I challenge you guys. If you haven't already thought about it, and me and Daniel know this just because we've had all the guys that I'm going to reference. What's interesting is guys like you that it really messed up. But John, you were referencing some of the upperclassmen, but depending on how their situation panned out. But if you go look at the 2021 Mississippi State, the 2022 Ole Miss, or the 2023 LSU team, and you find the 5-year guys and look at their names and see who they are, and then tell me that those teams would have won a championship still,
Yeah.
I tell you, there's not a chance in the world. It's actually interesting how 3 straight years, the guys that were the leaders, the guys who were the glue guys, those teams were guys who would have never been there. So while it did suck for a majority of players, for some teams they really benefited, had guys that were able to stay together with young talent or transfer portal talent that came in. So it's really an interesting dynamic altogether. It made the whole world crazy. And finally, this is the first year, guys. I don't know if you know this. This is how long COVID has bothered. This is the first year that athletics are no longer going to have those that have the COVID year. We're talking about 2024 before it went away.
Yeah.
We've had so many 5 and 6 year, depending on if they have, a medical red shirt and everything. So it's kind of crazy. When my daughter was even going through the college scholarship, thing, a lot of schools still didn't have scholarships available because they were being taken care of by some that were still carrying over. So it's wild that we're finally just now getting there. But, let's talk about that. Don, you obviously, man, in your time off, you killed it, right? Because you come back in 2021, you're batting 321. So, you said you got to play a little bit. You talked about the work ethic you learned putting in the cages and everything. 321 is a nice groove. How were you able to manage to work yourself to hit so well?
Yeah, I think really to put in perspective, I became an upperclassman at that time. I'd been training a lot of the time. I was a role player. I would go in the previous years before that as, a utility defensive replacement in the late innings. And I really got my first chance at, regular at-bats. And I think being able to have at-bats regularly really benefits, your flexibility and your feeling in the box where you're not feeling pressed to I have to maximize this one at-bat or I might not get another chance. And so I think that really helped me feel comfortable in the box and not overbear myself and, be tight and anxious. Really felt mentally clear and, felt like I had the opportunity to earn the spot with continued at-bats. And so that definitely played a role. To your point, just continued training, continued, the guys on the Catholic University baseball team, I think made each other better. Talent raises talent, iron sharpens iron. And, not to jump ahead, but some of those guys on that team ended up transferring D1 after their career at Catholic, ended. So I really think that being able to be an everyday starter and having a mental clarity into my role on the team, very much so benefited what I could do. And then also the talent on the team really pushed everyone to be a little bit better. So, that really helped me perform.
No doubt. And what it did was it solidified what you had just talked about. You had learned in the freshman year. And then obviously, like you said, continuing to grind, even though you had a shortened season, it just shows the work ethic. And it does matter getting the continued reps. That's why sometimes you'll see these coaches will leave guys in the lineup even though they're struggling. And you'll hear the fan base, losing their mind. Why is this guy in the lineup? You got to let a guy work through it sometimes. You got to get continued reps. If you just sit him down on the bench, he's never going to get there. So that's always one of those things, man, when you get the continued reps. But, we got to get to it. We didn't think Big Ten baseball was a thing, and then, John, you go there, dude. Michigan really does have a baseball team, Daniel. This is breaking news. We've spent a lot of time because what happened, and the thing about it was we were proved right because they tried to tell us that Iowa was going to be good at baseball this year, and we laughed and we didn't put them in our top 25. Daniel, how did Iowa fare?
They struggled mightily, but didn't Michigan 5 years ago go to the College World Series?
Yeah,
it was before in off the bench. We don't pay attention to those times.
Doesn't count.
But for real though, you go to Michigan, you make the choice. Obviously, we talked about it, the academic standard, but athletically, they obviously across all sports are highly competitive. So you make that decision. Just talk about when you get there the major difference, right, from Brown to Michigan. Whether you want to talk about both sides of it, the athletics and the academics, just what that culture change was like.
Yeah, totally. So I think just going back to making that decision, like you were saying, DB, Michigan had just come off that 2019 year of being runner-up in the College World Series. and having just an unreal, like, kind of Cinderella story season. And Eric Bakich was the coach there. He's now at Clemson. So they had high hopes, and I just said, hey, I'm leaving an Ivy League school. Let's get a good education, but also go somewhere where I thought we'd compete for a national championship, hopefully. But in terms of culture, it was a great culture, but a tough time for me personally because I came into a new school, and that summer after committing to Michigan and signing papers and deciding I'm going to leave my school, I end up tearing my UCL. And so I get to a new school, new program, new everything, and I'm in a brace with my arm. So it's just like you go to a new place, you in your head you're the guy, or you feel like you're the guy, but it's tough to be that vocal leader that you might want to be when you don't have anything to show for it yet. So in terms of like culture, like great team culture, Bakich was amazing at establishing like, there are no little things, lead from the front where like the older guys are doing the typical freshman things to show like, hey, you got to earn these things. Like almost saying it's a good thing to be carrying bags to the plane and stuff like that. Just everyone's doing the right thing at the right time all the time. It's kind of like the motto there. And so in terms of culture, like the team culture couldn't have been better.
Let me tell you about culture change. You needed this change. Oh, there it is. You needed this change, bro. That was a change that was needed in your life. I mean, that Brown picture was doing you no justice, man.
I thought that was a good photo. That's funny. I use that on my
bro. When I pulled that up, I was like, Michigan made him a changed man.
Yeah, they did. No, it definitely was more of like a fun time, fun school, kind of just like, the team itself was just easy to get along with, and everyone's still my boy. And I went back there and visited a bunch of guys. But yeah, in terms of like culture shock or anything like that, the commitment to baseball was much greater. Almost everyone there has professional like aspirations. Everyone wants to win a national championship. When you're at Brown, you have a couple people that want to play pro. You have a couple people that really enjoy baseball. They even love baseball, but they know pro isn't for them. And then you have guys that are just like, they're solid at baseball, but it's just like kind of like an extracurricular. But you're not going to have that in Michigan.
You get to go watch football at the Big House. Look, I don't, Daniel, I don't know what to pretend what Brown football is like, brother, but I'm just going to say it's not in the wheelhouse of going to the Big House.
Oh, it's probably top 10 places to go visit a football game. Brown.
Yeah. No,
the mighty Brown.
That's got to be a cool part of it, right? When you go to a university like that, taking baseball aside, man, being able to go with 100,000 plus people on Saturdays and watch football and big time teams come into play, like that's got to just be a whole experience within itself.
No doubt. That was I wouldn't say like football factored into the decision, but just knowing that Michigan kind of had like everything that you could ask for in terms of a school, like social life, sports, and all of that was part of the reason. I got lucky. The year before I got to Michigan, they had that down COVID year where they went below 500. And so I wasn't expecting, I know Michigan had a crazy football culture. It's like a religion there, but I really didn't expect us to be in the college football playoffs or anything like that. But it was amazing. I got to see some of the best games that I'll be able to say will probably be some of the best games ever that I'll be able to watch. And Nicholas can attest to it. He came to the first Ohio State win we had in 10 years back in 2021. And yeah, some of those games are just magical. And
I just need to know, Nick, were you there wearing Michigan?
Oh, it's funny. They had a teammate that wasn't. It's funny. I had a Catholic University parka that had some red on it. They're playing Ohio State, and everyone's like, "Dude, take that off right now. Nobody can be wearing any red." So I take a Michigan baseball parka, take a student ID. All the athletes got free tickets to the game, so I got a free ticket acting like I was a student. We're sitting in the student section. It's snowing. Michigan beats Ohio State. We storm the field. It was like, yeah, I definitely reaped the benefits of John going to that school. And to his point, like those games were incredible at the Big House.
I mean, what y'all just described is what I do every weekend of my life now, because the association I have with athletes. You can catch me on any given weekend wearing any set of colors and gear. You will not know that I'm truly an LSU fan, and I will fit my way in and I will have fun. And it's a blast, and I have no shame in it. But
Yeah, it sounds like a blast. That's
I mean, y'all
awesome.
saw me in Omaha. I wasn't wearing LSU. That's a fact. I had Tennessee on most of the time, and look how it played out. I was on the field with them in the end. But
that's sweet.
let's talk about your stats for a minute. You may not want me to, but
I was like,
I'm going to, John. We got to.
Go ahead.
16 appearances in your 2 years, 8.5 ERA, record of 1-2. Your very first appearance was against Michigan State, was actually really, really good. But after that, man, just up and down. You talked about the injury. What was it, man? You were just never able to find that consistency you were looking for.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a tough go at it for sure. That first outing against Michigan State, that was awesome. I was like, oh man, I'm back. But honestly, like the whole time, I think like coming back from that surgery. So basically, I got the UCL repair with internal brace. So I got that. I'm trying to remember exact like dates, but over that summer, and then I pitched that same season. And like, if I'm being honest with myself, I felt pressure from myself, from others around me, from my coaches that like, hey, I want to play this season. And I think I probably pushed it a little bit. And so anyone out there that'd be listening, if it's not feeling right, trust your body. Because I really, I knew first day I played catch after surgery, there was a little bit of pain, honestly. And I remember saying it at the time. My trainer said, hey, if that ever happens again, we're going to shut you down. And I didn't want to let the team down, didn't want to let the coaches down. It was already a whole fiasco getting injured right before you go to a new school when it comes to coaching staff and all of that. So I felt like pressure, like, hey, I got to play this season. So I pushed through it, and it ended up not really working out. I by the end of it, my arm was okay, but there was always nagging things. Nothing was ever really felt the same. Never got back to that same velocity. I think before the injury, I topped out 95, 96. After the injury, I was mainly hitting 91 at my peak. I think I hit 92 one time, but so the velo wasn't there, and the curveball, I couldn't land it. It wasn't as sharp. So I was really it was a tough go at it for sure. And like you said, up and down. There'd be days where, hey, it's feeling good. Curveball's hitting, fastball has some life to it. But it was super inconsistent and just not the way that you want to go about it for sure.
Daniel, this is your department of expertise. We've seen so many guys who come back and they were better than they were before. And then we have guys like John, and obviously he talked about, rushing back. Do you think it's as simple as that? Or, maybe does it come down to, the rehab program at what school you're at? What do you think it is? Because, I mean, we see some of these guys come back stronger than ever. Like he said, the velo just wasn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of those things. Obviously, when you have an arm surgery, regardless of what it is, you lose what it's hard to explain to people is like people think, oh, you rehabbed, you're able to throw again, you just pick up where you left off. But the reality is like for me, when I had surgery, and John, you might be able to attest to this, you grip the ball and all the grips of your pitches that you threw felt different. They just felt different. And so you had to almost figure out, well, how do I throw these same arsenal of pitches the way that I did? And sometimes you have to change things. And when you have to make changes, it takes time. You just don't flip a grip and then all of a sudden it just starts working. Like I wish that was the case, but
unless you're Paul Skeens or Chase Burns.
Right. Then you can just grab the ball however, and you do
you'll be good.
You do all your little goofy warm-ups in the bullpen, and then you're throwing 150 miles an hour. Like, hey, I wish that was the case, but it's really not, Jim. So.
It was worth asking. No, but last thing, guys, I mean, I'll turn it over to Daniel. You go to school, Nick, obviously, for more than anything, academics, you talk about it. I read an article about you, talking about the Bush School of Business, talking about what it did to you to prepare you for the professional level and get you to where you are today. So just, we talk about the audience listening, and especially the younger ones, prioritizing the academics, that not just the athletics, and what you can get out of your opportunity when you go to school.
Yeah, 100%. The Bush School of Business was, specifically the sales program there. Professor Mark Weber did a ton for me and does a ton for a lot of, current students at Catholic University and, students at other universities. But it really opened my eyes into the various careers I could go into. They have great professors across the board outside of Mark Weber. And really, I think that, to your point about why I chose Catholic University and the benefit of continuing to play baseball at Division III level, is a lot of the guys on like the major Division I programs like Michigan and LSU and Tennessee that you mentioned, like D3 athletes, we know our career is coming to an end for the most part, and so they really understand, hey, while you're here to play baseball, you're also here to get a great education. And so the coaching staff, while there's so much effort and focus and buy-in to be great and focus on baseball and putting that time and energy in, there's also that focus for academics. And so it's just as prioritized. And the Bush School of Business, from the sales program, I'm currently an account executive in sales, selling, on-premise infrastructure for data storage to federal agencies. They brought in a ton of tech companies, and I had, various opportunities for internships, got great exposure into what sales looks like, what these companies offer. And so I got the exposure during summer to not only play collegiate summer ball, but also do these sales internships. And so, Catholic University, the Bush School of Business, really allowed me to not only increase my baseball prowess and skill, but, prepare myself for a career outside of baseball in the long run. And so, very thankful, and wouldn't change a thing about my collegiate career where I went to college. And yeah, it set me up for success, and I'm 3 years out of college with a great job. And, I think a lot of that stems from, being a student athlete. It really prepared me and allows me to prioritize my time management, being competitive, and, dealing with failure, like you said, Daniel. Like a lot of the things early in my life, being an athlete, playing baseball, in sales, there's a lot of failure as well. You're going to get rejection, and, allowing my experiences from being a baseball player facilitate and allow me to have a great career, I think directly correlates.
Daniel, I mean, there's 18% of our audience that's between 14 and 18. If they took anything from this episode, that would be the thing.
Yeah, for people that are going to college, and regardless of what level you're going to school, make sure that the journey has the backup plan, because really that's the reason that you go, because it is very hard to be a professional at anything, and it's even harder to be a professional baseball player. And for you guys to go, all right, I need to make sure like I'm hedging my bets here. I got to make sure that I'm set up for success regardless of what baseball does, because baseball is baseball, but academics, that's a you thing. And when you invest in you, like you said, Nick, you see the results on the back end. And I'll say this, in sales, I've met a lot of people that are in sales, and the best that I've ever seen have always been baseball players for whatever reason. And I think it's because of the failure and the grind, and just the competitiveness of, it's a one-on-one, especially pitcher and hitter, or hitter and pitcher. It's just a one-on-one, like, I got to win you right now.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I am curious though, John. It's not listed, man. What did you actually graduate from Michigan?
It's not listed. That's funny. I graduated a degree in economics from University of Michigan, and then I just this past May did a 1-year Master of Business Management in the Ross Business School there. And now I'm following in my brother's footsteps, doing tech sales, kind of a intro role right now, but first job out of college doing tech sales for Dell Technologies right here in Austin, Texas. And it's been nothing but fun. But yeah, to Nicholas's point, totally agree with, it prepares you. Just baseball prepares you for the real world, kind of dealing with the failures Daniel was saying, and the time management skills, knowing, getting in early is getting in on time and stuff like that. So yeah, graduated with economics and master of management as well.
There you go.
Yeah,
Boys got the life, man. You got the life.
we're trying.
You keep it weird out there in Austin, man.
I'll try. Yeah, I'm keeping it weird. Jim or
Always.
Daniel, if you're ever down here for a football game, just let me know, and I'll find you a good pub.
I'll be down there for baseball to watch LSU wax.
Oh, sweet.
I'll see them at the
There you
deal.
Yeah, let me
There you
know.
go.
I need to go to some baseball games too for sure. So yeah, getting used to the Austin area, but there's a lot of stuff to do. So
All right. Well, let's put a bow on this episode. Before you guys go, we got to play a game called This or That.
Oh man, you forgot to ask him the question. I need to
Oh.
know, what was better, the World Series or the College World Series?
I mean, that the College World Series was, for me, once in a lifetime, right? I mean, you always dream about going to Omaha, whether it's as a player or an athlete. I mean, or a fan. And I think, man, the atmosphere of not only fans who have a dog in the fight, but fans who don't, it's a once in a lifetime moment. And the camaraderie outside the stadium is something that you won't see, I think, at, the MLB World Series.
Yeah, and y'all are there for the opening weekend, which is,
yeah.
I tell you guys, as it dwindles down and the teams start to disappear, and then the ballpark village, it's kind of sad. Right? Like, it's supposed to be exciting because you're getting to the championship, but when the people drop by half and then down to a quarter, and it's just those two fan bases left, it's no longer the people who are just there for the mega event. It kind of gets sad. Like, Daniel left, you guys left, and luckily I had my son, who's my partner in crime. But that opening weekend, especially, Daniel has talked about it. You get 3 walk-offs, and really the fourth game was kind of a walk-off with Laviolette robbing the home run. Like, you're just not going to get a better opening weekend of baseball. And like you said, atmosphere inside, outside. I mean, it hit the mark.
100%. Like, we met you guys. I mean, the people you meet there. I mean, I'm sure you'll meet them at the World Series, but everyone's looking to talk. It's not intentionally networking, right? But we were able to make this connection, and I mean, the amount of jello shots random fans gave to us because we gave their call out, even though we weren't necessarily.
Yeah, just saying gig 'em to get a free jello shot.
No, my wife said the people you meet there, I mean, are they really your friends? And Daniel can tell you, like, for instance, the whole ride with Tennessee, when I went to Lindsey Nelson in Knoxville, I was tailgating with the same guys I had met the year before in Hoover, in Omaha. And next thing you know, I was staying with them, so me and Jackson didn't have to pay lodging. And I can say the same thing for LSU, Mississippi State, or anything between. You actually, I mean, they're not just acquaintances that you meet one time. You make lifetime friends, even if you might only see them once every couple years. It's a really cool thing, because the love for the game of baseball is something that can bring a strong bond between people.
100%. And I'll say this before you do this or that. I don't know how close geographically Oklahoma City is to Memphis, but I have to travel to Oklahoma City for work fairly often. So if for whatever reason they're somewhat nearby, happy to always meet up, get a drink, catch a game. I'm based out of Hoboken, New Jersey, right across from New York City. So if you guys
if you're down to go watch gymnastics, because I'm an Oklahoma gymnastics season ticket holder, we're going to go watch them win a national championship. You down?
That's pretty cool.
Dude, gymnastics is sick. Like that, I've never seen it in person. I would be down to catch.
Oh, you got to. They won it 2 years in a row. They should have won it last year. Daniel will tell you, they literally didn't have one hiccup all season, murdering people. And then in the semifinals,
it was an epic meltdown.
Epic meltdown. But the whole squad is back. We've had every one of them on the show. They're like, you got to come to set me up with tickets or whatever. It's a little bit longer drive than Baton Rouge, where I normally go watch it, but it is different in person. And Daniel, me and him, he was into it before me. His wife and daughter, his daughter is an aspiring gymnast, but the degree of difficulty they have, like when people talk about the hardest thing there is to do is hit a baseball, like I have tough time saying that is harder to do than some of these things I'm seeing in gymnastics.
I bet.
It's tough. But let's get to it, guys. This or that. It's very simple. I'll give you 2 options. You choose one option or the other. Can't say both, can't say neither. Just be decisive. Go with your head, go with your gut, go with your heart, whatever it is that you go with,
I like it.
and stick to it. But to make it easy, I'll start with Nick first, and then John. You'll answer after Nick, just to make it
Okay.
feel a little bit easier.
Don't copy
Yeah.
me, bro.
Yeah,
I'll make my own answer before you even answer. Don't worry.
Jim, this or that. Who is it brought to you by?
Chinook Cedary, 8 flavors, mild to wild, the best in the game.
Yep. If you want value for seeds, you got to go with Chinook. You're gonna get jumbo size seeds for the price of regular size seeds. And I can't tell you how many times their other competitors will charge you for the jumbo seed that don't taste as good. So when I tell you this, Chinook is the seed of choice. You got to check it out. You got to go get it. They won't be disappointing to you. I promise you that.
Love it.
Gents, let's get into it. First, well, I'll preface the theme of this. So, Jim is much like Taylor Swift. He's in his eras, and he's in his, minor league baseball hat era. He's collecting these hats based on the mascot, because we all know minor league baseball has the best mascots. Let's be real. So, this is a minor league mascot edition of this or that. So, real easy. First question: would you rather be a storm chaser or a river bandit, Nick?
River Bandit.
Yeah, river bandit. John, what are you going with? Storm chaser, river
I'm
bandit?
going Storm Chaser. I'd love to see the logos too, but Storm Chaser, that's just a cool job in general too. So I'm gonna go Storm Chaser.
It's actually pretty sick. I actually have a hat on the way. Our very first
Love
guest,
it.
University of Memphis star pitcher Jonathan Bolin, who actually has made it all the way up to the Royals. He's now with the AAA Storm Chasers. He actually came here to Memphis, pitching for them. Had an immaculate inning, so pretty cool
That's
thing
sweet.
because he's from Memphis. Came to play the Redbirds in Memphis and in front of his hometown family and friends through the immaculate inning. So pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome.
Love it.
I chose
Yeah.
Bandit. I chose River Bandit just because I played for the Bandits growing up. So shout out to the
Nice.
Bandits.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
All
was
right,
thinking that too.
the next one: a Fisher cat or a sea dog. So cats, dogs. You see what we did there? I don't know what a Fisher cat is. At
Yeah.
first, I thought it was fish or cat, but it's not. It's Fisher cat or a sea dog. Nick, which
The
you go
fish
with?
has a sweet mustache. I know that.
I'll take a Sea Dog. I'm a dog guy. Give me a Sea Dog.
I'm gonna have to say the same thing. Sea Dogs. We're dog people over here in the Torroella family, and
There you
it
go.
just seems like a cool name to call yourself too. We're Sea Dogs. It's good.
Yeah. All right, Lumber Kings or Rock Hounds?
Lumber King, man. I want to be a king. Let me.
I'm copying you.
No,
Yeah.
I think, John. What are you going with? A Lumber King?
Lumber King. It sounds pretty cool. Sounds like Tiger King almost too.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty sweet to like when I think Lumber King, I'm thinking of some like burly guy with an
Yeah.
axe that's
Yeah.
just,
Chop
the-
wood.
I'm the king of the mountain.
The playtime's over. It's getting real now.
Yep. Here's where it gets real. All right.
Oh gosh.
Would you rather be a biscuit or a rubber duck?
Rubber duck, because I'm always alive. Biscuits,
There you go.
you got 10 minutes of fame. Rubber duck, I'm in that bathtub. I'm in the bathtub for years to come.
That's funny. Different than you here. I'm gonna go biscuit.
There you go.
When we get off here, Daniel, the
good.
first thing I got to check is to see if IOTB guests Trey Morgan and Paul Gervais and the Montgomery Biscuits won the AA championship because they're playing it right now.
Butter up.
Butter up. That's their hashtag. Butter
There
up.
we go.
Oh,
Chose the
damn,
right
you got a
one
good
there.
hashtag.
Butter
man.
up, baby.
You got a good one.
Butter up.
There you go. All right. River dog or a rail rider?
I'm gonna stick with my guns, River Dog.
River dog. John, are you
I'm
going
gonna
with
go Rail Rider here. I like the alliteration. That can flow off the tongue a little bit. We're Rail Riders over here.
I like that too. All right. Yard goat or mud hen?
Damn. Yard goat or mud hat? I'll go mud hen. Nothing. You play a dirty style of baseball. You're scrappy. We're mud hens. We get after it.
All
I'm
right.
gonna go yard goat. I think they're both pretty silly names, but yard goat is just comical. I don't know. It's just a weird name. Why is there a yard in front of the goat? I don't really get it, but I like it. And
It
your
is
goat,
so
greatest of
sweet.
all time.
Oh
It-
shit!
Is that the yard goat right there?
That's the
Yeah.
yard goat.
He's a beast.
Kind of looks like
My
the Navy
God.
mascot.
I mean,
Little
that's not too far. That's what, Hartford?
Yeah.
Hartford yard goats. All
You
right.
watch Chase Dolander deal.
Yep.
So,
Trash panda or rumble pony?
Trash panda.
All right.
I had a funny nickname. I was really messy my junior year of college, and some people were calling me Trash Panda in my house.
Oof.
So it's a tough nickname, but I still got to ride with them. I'm going to choose that one.
There you go.
I outgrew the nickname, though, I think.
All right, Nick, finish it off. You said mud hen over yard goat, and you said trash panda over rumble pony. So if you had those two, a mud hen or a trash panda?
I'll stick with the mud hen. I liked my explanation for why. We play a scrappy style of baseball. We're not afraid to throw a bunt down to move the guy over, suicide squeeze. We're the mud hens.
Get it. All right, John, yours was yard goat or trash panda?
I'm going yard goat there. I don't really love the Trash Panda name in general, but yard goat, you got goat in there. You got some great players on my team over here. And it's just kind of funny. It's in your yard, so I like that
Well,
name.
I'll tell y'all this: the Trash Pandas alternate, the Lunatics, is the best.
That's
pretty sweet. I like the minor league hat collection. That's pretty cool.
But the hat so here's the key, though, guys. He didn't mention this. They have to be autographed and sent to me from one of our guests that's in the minor league. So that's the key to the hats I got. We don't have a guest that plays for the Rumble Ponies, and it's really pissing me off because it is by far the best hat. Dude, it is a literal stallion with boxing gloves jabbing forward, dude. Like, I need it in my life. We don't have one. I need it.
He needs it.
I know it's not a minor league collection, but I'll try to get a couple Catholic University hats, sign it over, and ship them your way so you can have that.
There
we go.
Yeah, we get some Michigan gear over there too. For sure.
This podcast room is just filled with stuff that's awesome. It'll fit right in.
Love it.
Back in the day, you might bring this back if you do that, John. Is back in the day when I first met Jim, he was a Michigan fan. He was.
But if we're gonna go there, you were an Ohio State fan.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, we actually
No longer affiliated, or what happened there?
It just when you want to go there and that's kind of the school that you want to go to, and then you realize it's cold as hell and it's a long way, and you're just like, eh.
I have a theory. We've never even discussed this on air, but I have a theory. Memphis sucked at everything, and therefore we found an alternative team to root for. And the reason I gravitated towards Michigan was actually
sucked at everything is not accurate.
No, I gravitated towards Michigan as a kid because of their helmets, actually.
Yeah, the wing helmet, sweet. They got some cool gear.
The last time Memphis baseball went to a regional, your boy Dan Ugla was hitting bombs.
Wow. It's a long time ago. That's sweet, though.
I go to Memphis games on the regular. Man, they might have 30 people in attendance. It's tough sailing there.
Yeah.
You got to bring back that program.
I have a former teammate that plays at Rice University, and I think they're in the same conference as Memphis. So.
They are. They
probably pound on them, too.
Let me tell you something. Back in the day, like, Rice was legit.
Yeah.
Just a legit powerhouse baseball school. It was like they had big arms. They were flat good, dude.
Their coaches on the hot seat. They've been
the problem is teams like that now with the NIL era, this is and we talked with we had Coach Bobby Miranda on here. He did over 30 years of coaching baseball, whether mid majors or in the ACC. It's a dangerous time right now for your non-power 4 teams because they just don't have the money to keep up with the other teams. So it'll be interesting to see if those other teams, such as a Rice or your teams that have been better as of lately, like a Coastal Carolina or your DBUs, if they'll be able to keep up, because they're not going to be able to win the money war.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Well, John, Nick, it's been a blast. I appreciate you guys coming on. Taking the time, telling your story, and just, as always, having good conversation. So if there's anything that we can do for you along the way, reach out to us. And as always, just keep us posted. We'll keep you posted on where we're at. If we can link up, we'll definitely try to make that happen.
Yeah.
We share the same sentiment, I'm sure. And if you're ever in our neck of the woods, give us a holler. We'd love to, whether it's a crab cake or a Guinness at a pub, we can do them both. So
Nice.
We're versatile over here. But yeah, it was great hopping on. Good seeing you guys again. Really appreciate it, Jim and Daniel. And just, if you're ever in Austin, let me know. I'll link up and go to the Texas baseball game.
I already told you when. The date is on the schedule. I'm not looking at it right now, but I think it's in March. I'll be at the Dish.
All right. Sounds good. Can't wait. It's going to be fun.
All right. I want to thank John and Nick for joining us. If you like hearing their story, or you just like hearing us average Joes talk X's and O's, please like and share the podcast on Facebook. Retweet us on X. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Going over to YouTube, click the subscribe button, click the notifications, because there's going to be content going up every single day, and you don't want to miss it. You want to be the first to hop on it and hear what we got, grow the game, do all the things that we like to do. As always, comments, ratings, feedback, thumbs up, hearts, hugs, love. We'll take it all. Jim, got some episodes coming up. What we looking at?
You got Hunter Hines, Mississippi State. You got Brandon Arvidsson, transfer to Tennessee. Trayson Hughes, Virginia Tech, which will be a first time for us to knock another school off. And then Ike Irish from Auburn.
You mentioned the buzz phrase of the offseason for baseball is a transfer to Tennessee. You're hearing that a lot.
Our fourth one already.
Hearing that a lot.
We have decided, we already know the other guys. He'll be the fourth one. We're trying to get the guys who are going to be in Omaha this year, because it seems to be what Tennessee's doing every year.
Yeah,
they're a good team, good program now.
They're a wagon now.
Yeah, they're winning at everything, and everyone is on board.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this has been the In Off the Bench podcast. As always, remember, strong body, sharp minds, grit and grind all the time. We are out.
Awesome.